one. Welcome back to another episode of our Weird Girl podcast. Today we are diving into some crucial and pressing issues that deeply affect our communities, such as teenage crime, the impact of gun violence, and the troubling rise of unsolved crimes in Peoria, Illinois. These topics hit close to home for many of us, and it's essential that we address them head on. To help us navigate these complex issues, I'm honored to be joined by two incredible guests. First, we have Chris McCall, a dedicated attorney at law who brings a wealth of knowledge and experience. Chris will be helping us understand the legal perspectives and the systemic challenges that contribute to these issues. We're also privileged to have Yolanda Wallace with us today. She is the founder of the John Buckley Memorial, an organization she started after the tragic murder of her son. Her personal journey through loss and her relentless fight for justice and community support provides a powerful and necessary perspective on the human side of these statistics. Throughout this episode, we will explore how inadequate education systems can lead to higher rates of teenage crime, the pervasive issue of gun violence that plague our streets, and the frustration and pain caused by unsolved crimes. We aim to shed light on these problems and discuss potential solutions and the steps we could take as a community to make a difference. So whether you're listening at home or in your commute, if you're in a car, on Facebook, be careful driving. I encourage you to tune in, engage with us, and think about how we can all contribute to creating safer, more supportive environments for our youth and communities. Let's get started. So Peoria, Illinois has population is less than as far as the black and brown community as others, but yet we see our children and our faces in more crime than as far as gun violence crime than other communities. I do believe that it is a lack of education, seriously. I went to many different schools growing up. I went to District 150. I went to school in the Heights. I graduated from Dunlap, so I was able to see all of the variables, and back then I didn't understand what I know now, and so I just want to, get some insight, from you all, and let's talk about the real deal. First we can start with Yolanda. We can start with Yolanda, just a basic question of, how you became an activist for gun violence.
Well, first it kind of started off with just trying to survive after the death of my son, and then from that point, it grew into something more, and just trying to help other people and other people coming to me, and I was still trying to survive myself. And then it just turned into, this is something that we need to fight for here in our city, because we don't have a voice for survivors here. Even still to this day, it's very shallow.
And so there was nobody there to help you. You got all of this on your just to be helping for others. That's good.
I just started. It's kind of, I call it what grief built. Okay. So I just kind of, out of the resources that I needed that weren't available here, I created them.
Where did you find those resources in order to create them here?
Just thinking about after their 2006, there was, I think there was like maybe, and that was big then, quite a bit of people, maybe about 20, 25 people was really big, but now we've overseeded those numbers since 2006. And I thought after somebody got killed, there was all these people to help them put their life back together again. I thought they was following up with them. I thought there was a victim's advocate that just come right to knock to your door, give you a phone call, follow up. None of that was happening, and nothing that's happening still to this day, except for the few organizations that I see around that kind of do that. We have more organizations that deal with trauma and stuff like that, like OSF Strive. You got OSF Silver Cloud if you want to do your own self-help thing on the computer. But just to come out after that, a lot of people are starting to tell me that they're not even called by anyone.
Not even family?
No, they not called by the police
Oh.
to identify, or the coroner to identify that this is their loved one. So it's really a underserved type situation all the way across the border. In the county, on the county side, we do have a victims advocate over there on the county side, and she does a very good job, and her name is Amy Chanel.
Okay.
But on the city side, it's been years since we had a victims advocate, and that was Linda Glacken, and that's something that I have brought to the attention of our new chief of police. I brought to the attention to the city council. Why don't we have a victims advocate to follow up with these people?
Right.
Why isn't there a follow-up?
Right.
Now, I know that we're going to be getting social workers, and we did have PCAP, Peoria Community Against Violence, but as a whole, that population is kind of going under. So when you're talking about surviving, and you're talking about where are those survivors today? So if I was to ask you, where are those survivors today? What are they doing?
Right.
What help do you see that is available for them?
Right. And I don't think about that, being honest. I don't think about that because I haven't experienced that. But now that I have a 13-year-old son,
That's honest.
I'm starting to really see things in a different light. I've always taught him growing up, carry yourself this way. You're a cute boy now, but they're not gonna always look at you like that, especially because he was always taller than everybody in his class. I was like, you're gonna be tall. Your height alone is gonna make you be a threat. Somebody's gonna see you, and you're just gonna be tall walking down the street, and something may happen to you and you did nothing at all. So I've instilled that simple fear in him. At least I tried to, but I don't think it sunk in too much. He's not out there doing anything crazy, but he's a teenage boy. He plays and got a little mouth on him. But the older he gets, the more I reminisce on the way that I did teach him. And then I even think of how I raised him like that. But I don't say that to my daughters. I don't say, hey, act this way because somebody's going to see you as a threat. I've never once said that to them. And I'm, like I said, in my age, as I'm getting older, I'm really understanding things a different way. I knew then, and I was teaching them, but now I'm feeling it. Now he's 13, and I'm like, whew, just being with the wrong people could cause something, even if he wasn't doing it. So, yeah. But I haven't thought about advocates for those people.
Right. Well, to be honest, I had not either. I raised my kids to be respectable. They were in church and stuff like that, and had good manners, and even still to this day, I still run into people who tell me all kind of good things about John. But the fact still remains that the number one leading cause of death in the United States is homicides. And that was reported by the National Health Institution as well as the Peoria County Health Department. And so, and out of that number of it being number one, I guarantee if we were to divide it by sex, male and female, that the male would be the number one endangered species.
Definitely.
For sure. I totally agree. And you say definitely because you see this on the fighting end of what's going on in our community and across the United States.
Yes, I've seen it from multiple angles. Hello, my name is Chris McCall. I'm a local attorney, and I've been practicing law since 2003. And
that's a long time.
Yeah, long time. Definitely a long time. And I remember when I was a baby lawyer. Now I'm kind of old school now.
Yeah.
But when I, um, as Miss Wallace talked about, I was involved with PCAV,
Okay.
and I was on the board of directors for PCAV, and
Okay.
we recently lost our funding, and so officially PCAV became disbanded literally as of last night.
Oh.
And one of the things that PCAV would do is visit homes and speak with individuals who were whose loved ones were victims of gun violence. We would also take many steps to prevent gun violence. There were many episodes where we would be on the scene and we would try to move kids from different locations if there was some beef, or we heard rumors about some ongoing problems, and move the kids around to keep them from escalating the situation. And now that is something that's missing in the community. I know that OSF is looking to start something similar to PCAV, and they're looking for an executive director to be able to take those steps. And I've also had extensive experience in research in prevention of gun violence, because at one point I unsuccessfully ran for Peoria County State's Attorney back in 2020. But as a defense attorney, what I also try to do is some of the criteria the court looks at before sentencing someone is whether or not they're likely to commit other offenses. And so I work with my clients to explain to them the law and how they can get on the wrong side of the law and how to prevent them from committing future crimes again. And the dangers of carrying guns, and not only can that violate probation, but it can violate your life. I think it's important to note that when you do commit gun violence, it's a law of nature. There's always a reaction, okay? And let's say you had a gun and you pull that gun on someone else, that person more than likely is gonna tell family member or a friend, John or Chris pulled a gun on me. Then at that point, you may have retribution, you may have revenge. And so that's how the cycle continues. And so your loved ones, your family, they may not feel safe going around Peoria.
Right.
We all know it's a small city. Peoria is like one of the biggest small cities you can
I
find.
swear.
Because, you know, I'm a 46-year-old man, and there are people who still walk up to me and say, "Oh, you're such and such kid. I remember you when you played this sport," you know, and that was years ago. And so now imagine that you've done something wrong to another person and you put their life at risk. The other problem with gun violence is, as Miss Wallace knows very well, we've all had situations where we've had a loved one we expected to come home who did not come home. And that is a certain trauma that not everyone understands and appreciates.
That's where I am at. That's the side of the field that I'm on.
Right. You know, and I've had that trauma, but not that trauma when it comes to gun violence, especially for a young person. You know, I've had loved ones who've passed away, but as Miss Wallace can attest, if you have a loved one who says, "Bye, Mom," or even worst case scenario, you all had a disagreement before that individual left. That's even a different level of trauma. And then, of course, you deal with the trauma of a mother having to bury their son without answers.
Right.
And the community has to really respect that. And we have to take the necessary steps to prevent that from continuing to happen in our community. That is a different level of sadness that no mother should have to stand for. Burying a child, not knowing how their child passed away. Every parent, and I'm a parent of two girls, we always want our kids to have a better life than what we had. Those are the steps we take forward every day to make sure our kids have a better life than us. And we need the community to help us in achieving those goals. To be respectful of life, be respectful of another, follow the law. Those are basic steps. Be each other's brother's keeper. Sometimes you have to understand when it's appropriate to walk away from a situation
Right.
and not seek revenge.
To prevent somebody's mother or
Right.
family from going through that, because there's that one factor that when people tend to think that just because they killed a person, that it's just that person is gone,
No.
that's dead. It has killed a whole family. To each victim, they have family, they have friends, and they are really who make up our community.
Right.
So when we talk about how to change the course of things and how to think about prevention in gun violence before we get to the part where the altercation turns sour, where now I feel like I hate you and I got to do something to end this thing, think before you shoot. That's what I always say. They just need to think before they shoot. There's situations that happen where, I know everybody, people get heated up and the situations, circumstances, but most of the cases that happen related to homicide, from my research in working with the Peoria Police Department, as well as the State's Attorney's Office, and sitting in with some of our families, because I sit in the courtroom as a victim advocate to support our families, because even on underserved families, they don't even have money to buy an attorney or anything like that. And we have the State's Attorneys, Victims Advocates that are in there with them. But does the family actually have someone who's been through it with them
Right.
to help them get through it?
And as you've discussed, you're not just killing the individual with whom you had a problem. You're affecting generations of family. That individual may have kids. That individual has a mother, has a father, and let's talk about even the financial repercussions of committing murder. Yeah,
Well, I have a question real quick because
Okay.
I don't want to forget because I have to type it down. Why did PCAP lose its funding if it's something that we clearly need?
Well, I'm not the person who
Okay.
should talk about
Okay,
that.
okay,
That
okay.
would be a question for our politicians who
Okay.
are in charge of
Yeah.
running the government.
Okay.
And of course, everything in related to, I don't know, like you said, our government. Sometimes, grants, they run out and, they switch up where they want to send the money and
And
requirements to,
Okay.
so.
Okay.
But
That's a simple explanation.
Simple explanation, but I will also say that we weren't able to raise enough money to continue PCAF for the foreseeable future for a few years.
Okay.
And so we did not want to continue to try to fundraise based upon private donations if we weren't going to be sustainable for a few years.
I got you. Okay.
Now, I would like to interject something in this conversation about PCAF. I like PCAF because it was a community built of professionals to help our community. But I also felt like that within the PCAF thing, outside of the PCAF thing, there was another community that was silenced. That we didn't. The people who were survivors, they were not. They were included in PCAF, but it's like I said, the underserved people who are affected by gun violence. Most of them feel like after this person has been killed, I might as well die too.
Right.
And they add to the crime sometimes. They add because of their retaliation, because of their, being left out. Because some people kind of turn their back or look over them or kind of feel like, you must have did something wrong. That's why your son is dead. Or
That's the
Stuff
first thought
like
people
that.
think. Well, what did
Right.
he do to get
And-
he to get killed? Oh, he
Right.
just lived his life.
And like I said, and we know poverty is definitely related to the reasons why gun violence happens as well. So like I said, putting yourself back together again, your life back together, and that's why I started Mothers War on Violence, because I still didn't see, and that was in 2023, I still didn't see what we needed, or 2022, I meant. I still didn't see what we needed was really in the community. So then I started drawing the community together, pulling it together to get what we needed. We need the mental health, professionals, as well as we need the survivors to be coming from a victim to a survivor to a part of the solution.
Right.
We do not have that loop here in Peoria to change those survivors into leaders.
Right.
Now, if we did that, we would be big. I mean, like even in the schools, you can't hardly talk about that type of violence.
And
even though there might be gun violence and the school be shut down and all that, it's not to be talked about. So therefore, how are we really dealing with violence to stop it?
And violence, even if you're not a direct victim of violence, that affects you
Everybody.
indirectly. For example, how many times have we seen young individuals who have gone away, and you don't have to, be an affluent member of society just to go to school, but
Right.
they've gone away to school and they say they're not coming back to Peoria because of danger or because of problems here. And so that is how gun violence can affect even an additional side of innocent people.
Right.
Not just the victims, but it also takes away money because those people could be coming here. They could be buying houses. They would be paying taxes.
Right.
They would be generating revenue for us to continue to provide resources and services for our youth.
Right.
And to get back to kind of where I was going about the financial problems that violence leads to the surviving family. Not just are you causing trauma to the victims and their families, but now the families have got to come up with $20,000 to bury.
That's it? I thought it was more than that. I thought the price went up.
This is a simple burial.
Okay.
We're not even talking about, if you want a couple limousines,
Okay.
to support the family.
Starting at 20,000.
Yeah. The church, and then, the entire process for the family to grieve, and then the repass. And so it's just a decision that you're making affects so many other people, and it can for life. And now, what if that individual you killed has children?
Right.
And now you have a grandmother who is trying to raise potentially, those children.
Right. And not even that, like affecting the people that may have saw it.
Right.
People get killed in front of people, and now that person's traumatized. And what's disheartening to me that I've learned about recently that I once again didn't think about is how many unsolved murders we actually have in Peoria. And then that goes with seeing it done once or twice, you're like, oh no, that's unfortunate. But seeing it done 4, 5, 6 times, it's like now it feels like people have it in their mind that I could do it and get away with it because people are doing it and getting away with it. And this town is too small. For example, I'm gonna tell y'all a little something. This is how small Peoria is. My husband's aunt on his mom's side married my cousin on my dad's side. Like, that's how small Peoria is, right? Right? Okay. I just found out that my son's father, who has 2 kids by another woman, is my husband's cousin. Peoria is too small for the crime that it possesses. We're all related. Hold on, he's got to say something.
Karen Wilson says, every time you move the body, it costs.
Ooh.
She says hello, first and foremost.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
And there was one more. Miss Karen also said, every time you move the body, it costs.
Every time you move the body, it costs. Okay.
And when it relates to unsolved murders, that's one of the things that is the bottom of the totem pole here in our city that we don't get enough to talk about. I mean, but then again, all this stuff, when you say murder, I don't think people understand the politics that plays into it. When it first happened to me, I had no idea that this whole thing about murder was a political pitfall, because you can put a lot of layers on this and dig yourself trying to build and trying to put stuff together all you want, but at the end of the day, you know, it's political. I mean, each one. So for the back to the unsolved murders thing, so I've created the Who Killed Me page to help with that as being the community. So we don't always need the police to do everything for us. We need to get back to being the community and building up one another to make a difference in our city. So with the Who Killed Me page, I use it to acknowledge their pain, because some people are angry because they unsolved murders, so that causes more crime. You know, they feel abandoned. People are pitying them more than they are actually trying to give them a chance to put themselves together. And some people, after this happened, are traumatized that they can't even leave the house without shaking or having a panic attack. It has left some people more crippled than others. Now the question is, what do we do to try to get our cases solved?
Right.
That's a harder thing to answer than what it really is.
Right.
Now, some people call and they make the reports to the Peoria Police Department, as you know, and some people feel like nothing happens. After I done told the police what happened and what I heard and all this and this and that, they still saying there's not enough evidence. And so, you know, Mr. McCall, as an attorney being in court, I mean, there are lots of cases should be in the court, but sometimes the state's attorneys feel like there's not enough evidence against the person, or either they're fighting another crime that we can't get them convicted.
Yeah, and you also have situations where what is required as evidence in court is different than what is required in everyday conversation. And so a lot of the times in court, you need eyewitnesses, and you need eyewitnesses who are going to cooperate. Not just eyewitnesses who are going to say, well, what I heard happened was this.
Right.
They need to be able to say, well, this is what I saw, or this is what I was told by the person who did it. At that point, you have an admission by what is called an admission by a party opponent. When someone who is actually accused of the crime confesses the crime to someone else, that is not hearsay. You can use that in court. But if you just say, well, I heard Michael did it because his girlfriend told me he did it, you can't use that. And you also have to be always careful, because some of the individuals who may have information, the police have to, in the state's attorney's office, and then ultimately the jury has got to find those individuals credible. Because if I run across somebody who's not credible, as a defense attorney, I'm gonna try to eat them up. To try to get, because I have to do what's in the best interest of my client.
Right.
And so it is, you need a lot of information, you need a lot of evidence to bring forward these kind of cases. The burden of proof is the highest burden of proof in the world.
What's that?
Beyond a reasonable doubt. In order to find someone guilty of a crime, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. And the police are always cognizant of that when they are investigating a case, because no one wants to bring these sort of cases and lose, because that is a different way of bringing more trauma to the family.
I get that.
So they want to make sure that they're strong cases. And the other reason they want to make sure they take their time is because there's no statute of limitations on murder. What I mean by statute of limitations is usually for a felony, you have 3 years to bring a case,
Okay.
but there are some sexual assault cases, especially against minors and murder, there is not a statute of limitations.
Okay.
So you can bring those within 10 years if you get the appropriate information.
Oh, okay. That's
so
kind of
hopefully
good
I
to know.
didn't bore people too
No,
much.
you're fine. You're fine. Yeah, that's
That's
good
good
to know. Yeah.
Well, you know, they also, when it comes to the unsolved murders, you know, as a people in a black community, to add to what you were saying about the statute of limitations and then having a credible witness, we have the no snitch
Right.
thing going
Bad.
on in the black community.
Bad.
Real bad.
Mhm.
So bad that it hurts us
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. And then sometimes I think it's like, you know, oh Lord, we got that one thing going on where am I my brother's keeper? Do I
Yeah.
love my brother? I mean, do I care enough to walk away from that situation before it even happens? You know what I'm saying? We have that hatred as well against each other in the black community more than we do towards other nations.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
and oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
And it kind of jumped where you were talking about, Ms. Wall, is it is very important that we seek resources where we can move families around who are witnesses of crimes and murder, because I think it's difficult to expect someone to go talk to the police, give a recorded statement for 2 or 3 hours at the police station, and be dropped right back off at the house, and live in an open in a police car. And the attorney has reviewed the discovery with his client who's accused of doing the crime, and you just kind of out there on your own. You know, that's difficult for anyone to deal with that.
Right.
And so if we
Because
can,
they're afraid.
and the
know?
police aren't there 24/7, and they have to deal with the threats not just potentially from the person accused, but that person's family, you know, that person's significant others. Yeah, I heard you went to talk to the police. No, I didn't. Well, Billy saw your interview that you did at the police station because he saw your interview with your attorney. The attorney's got to show him that stuff, and you got to look at how long it takes for a murder case to go to trial. A murder case usually takes, on average, at least 3 years to go to trial.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
It does.
That's
and so
too
now,
long.
And so now you have these people who are accused, who are being witnesses. They're just out there for 3 years waiting on a case to go, and then you end up having sometimes the state's attorney's office that literally has to use private investigators to scoop them up and bring them back. So
Yeah, really.
that's
That's
the
crazy.
other side people don't know.
And you know, I even have seen where they've been best friends, your homies,
Yeah.
who are so-called homies of these so-called, you know, the person who's been killed and stuff. They ain't coming. They ain't telling.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I
it's-
mean, because
yeah,
they're afraid,
Right.
like you
For
said.
sure.
it's a safety issue.
It
For
is
sure.
a safety
Definitely.
issue. But at the same time, if we want justice to be served, you still need to come forward.
Yeah.
They have other ways to come forward if you don't want to come forward like that. And you could do tip 411, you could do Crime Stoppers, they say. But when you actually show up for that stand and all that kind of stuff, it makes things go quicker in the courtroom. So you don't have to be there almost 3 years.
How do you do something anonymous how do you submit your information anonymously if they need you on the court stand? You know what I'm trying to say? Like
Well,
how
if they need you on the court stand, you can submit it anonymously.
okay.
But I think what Mrs. Wallace is talking about is you can call Crime Stoppers and you can give your information anonymously. You can leave a tip.
What
and
you
then-
saw,
what
and
you
who
saw.
it was,
And
Right.
the police
and
can.
names.
But then that's what I'm saying. If I call Crime Stopper and I say I saw somebody kill somebody, and that person then gets picked up or whatever, if I was the person saying it, if I was the proof, how do they what other evidence will they have? You get what I'm trying to say? Like,
Depending
they
on
have to
where
come
it
back
was.
to me, right?
Depending on where it is, could have been video.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could be at the time that the situation happened, you were there and you gave your tip anonymously.
Right.
You know.
Anonymously,
Yeah,
right.
anonymously. Yeah. Now and then when you actually go to court and stuff, that trial don't start until about a year later.
Oh, okay. I understand
So,
everything
it's-
now.
yeah,
You
so
could
it's
do it
like-
anonymously, but you're still, like you're saying, you're like you were stating, if the person does anonymously, they're still going to be put into
Potentially.
Yeah,
Okay.
But there-
potentially that statement that they
Right.
said.
Yeah, there are a number of different ways police can try to get what are called confessions, where they won't necessarily need
Okay.
eyewitnesses.
Okay.
There's a famous scene, and forgive me, I love The Wire. All right?
Okay,
There's
that's
a famous
fine.
scene in The Wire where someone committed a crime and nobody was stepping up. So what they did was they paraded someone across the police station, allowed the guy to see him with a McDonald's bag, and said, "Yeah, we fed him real good. Do you have anything to say now?" And the guy confessed. Contrary to what people may or may not know, the police, they can lie to you. And so if they can misrepresent information to you and to get a confession, that'll be allowed in court.
And as well as the technology that the police are using now, I got a chance to see where our tax dollars go to as far as, the equipment that they have around town, the cameras, the at the stoplights, and just everywhere,
Got
So-
a camera right here, right outside here.
Exactly.
Multiple.
Right. But guess what I've learned since they have upticked on all that? The unsolved murders are going down.
Okay.
As far as the
That was
new
gonna be
ones
my
that
next
are
thing.
happening since we've had our new chief
Yeah.
of police. So since he's been here, those numbers have gone down, and there have been more people who've been apprehended and caught. Not always because somebody tell them, but because of what's happening in our technology that we have, and then they can monitor Facebook. Some people have accused or threatened people on Facebook. All that is being watched.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's other ways, like you said, that they can find out who killed somebody. So
And they can also get warrants for your phone to find out exactly where your
Exactly.
phone was at a certain location.
Yeah. Yes, that I knew.
Yes. So there's some new things that are happening right now in Peoria and across the nation that is able to help us with that unsolved issue. However, the backload of the unsolved issues, the priors to our new chief, are still hanging high, and they were more bigger than all the murders that we've had in the few years that he's been here. So those are sometimes when I'm looking in the newspaper, I can see a name, and I already know what family it came from, with the crime, when it happened, where it happened, and then sometimes that death day, anniversary date is around that time. All I gotta do is look at my log of, this is the year that their son died. This is the month that they got killed. And I already know what this whole thing was all about.
Right.
We had some situations that I've seen without me even mentioning any names. And they're, we got these playing cards for unsolved murders. And the reason why we have them is to heighten the awareness. It's not to, you can play with them like they regular cards, playing cards, but to hide the awareness, because out of sight is out of mind.
Right.
So if you don't see the face of that person, you tend to forget who it is. So, but when it comes down to those death anniversaries and birthdays and stuff like that, and sometimes holidays, that same name of that person that's in the deck is related to somebody who just committed a crime. I mean, that's how small Peoria is too.
Right.
I can pull out my cards and be like, wow.
Yeah, because usually if someone commits a shooting and there are 3 shootings back to back to back, they're usually intertwined.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they're related.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. You know, we live not too far from here, and sometimes we could be in the house. I'm like, oh, there's some gunshots, you know, and all praises. It's never, you know, close enough to us where we feel like we're in danger, but it is close enough to us where we could go outside and walk, poke our head around the corner and see a house, you know, or because we live off McClure, you know. McClure is a very busy street when it comes to crime. So.
Yeah, neighborhoods are also, you know, part of it, the way things have gone down in the neighborhoods. You know, the village used to be that, I know my neighbor who lives next door to me. She knows my mom. You know what I'm saying? We know each other. I'm telling grandma. Grandma used to live in the house with us and our families. And everything has changed. So now the neighbors are following along with what's happening with the kids. Shh, you don't tell mom, I won't either. And before you know it, we got a situation.
And sometimes you also have people who've been in the neighborhood for 20 years who are now relocating to different areas of the city.
Right.
You know, there are some people who've had, and there are beautiful homes out here in central Peoria
Yes.
and in the East Bluff. And
Yes.
you find out that they're relocating.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
And that's true. And that's what another question, you know, something I wanted to talk about with y'all. Are you from Peoria, born and raised?
I'm not.
Okay. How long have
I've
you
been here majority of my life. I
Okay.
came to Peoria in the foster care system.
Okay.
So,
And that's what I was gonna say. You know, I'm just slightly younger than you all, not too much, And I'm from Peoria, born and raised. And man, maybe I was oblivious, or I don't know, you know, to the way things were. But you know, from your experience, is crime getting worse, or is it steadfast?
It's actually getting a little bit better.
Okay.
Just a tiny bit better. There has been a lot of work, a lot of community volunteers have been doing, and you know, and we've taken leadership like from Mrs. Wallace and other community volunteers. We meet with something called the Safety Net or SNET on a monthly basis at Peoria Public Schools, and it's headed by Mayor Ali.
Okay.
And we talk about different ways of crime prevention, and we talk about ways to utilize government resources. And she put some of the brightest minds and some community leaders in the room, and we're working to try to stop the gun violence.
Okay.
And so that's happened, and I'm sure, and I'm very hopeful that she's reached out to individuals like Mrs. Wallace. She's reached out to me. She's reached out to Antoine Banks, different individuals within the Peoria Public Schools sector, different individuals with the Peoria Police Department, and we're all meeting on a monthly basis, putting our heads together.
Okay.
Because there have been too many situations in Peoria where we've kind of gone at it alone, and we're trying to go at it together.
That's good. That's good to hear.
We're trying.
That's good to hear. I really like to hear stuff like that, you know, because that's something that I think that we do need to be more hands-on the community with the schools, because growing up, I thought about my future. Oh, I'm gonna get married, and I'm gonna be a wife, and I'm gonna have kids. I'm gonna be a soccer mom, and I'm gonna do this and that and other stuff. And I'm gonna be a good enough mom to because I only had, you know, Isaiah for a little while, you know. I'm gonna be the mom that, you know, all the kids will want to come to her house, you know. Then you start having kids, like, I don't want these kids at my house. But the moral of the story is, there are a lot of people doing impactful things in our community, but most of them had to go through it the hard way before they started. So it would be great if we could have these conversations and catch them while they're younger, catch, you know, high schoolers, middle schoolers, catch them while they're younger, and let them know, like you're saying, Peoria is a nice place to live. You know, keeping people here, keeping people in the community so that they can we can continue to foster the next generations, as opposed to people wanting to get out so bad that they don't come back, or people that think so poorly on Peoria that they don't feel like there's going to be any way to fix it, you know?
No, absolutely, and I think it's very important that you have people in certain spaces who have certain histrionics and experience. Like, I'm keeping a buck with you. I'm a son of a dentist who, was the second or third African American dentist in Peoria. My mom was a stay-at-home mom until I was in the 5th grade. I wouldn't have as much credibility going to certain neighborhoods and talking to certain kids about what it's like to grow up on Star Street. I didn't have that experience. I went to Richwoods and I lived in Lyndhurst.
Right.
However, I can go talk to those kids and explain what happens in the court system.
Right.
And so we can use, like Mrs. Wallace, she said she grew up in foster care. And it's very difficult for people growing up in foster care to sometimes get past that and achieve it. She's done that.
Yeah.
And so we can use individuals who have experience in spaces and talk to those kids in spaces.
Yeah, definitely.
And talking about spaces, it reminds me about healing spaces. There are a lot of different things that happen in our city, and we have, programs for if you have cancer, if you have diabetes, if you have heart issues or stuff like that. There's all kind of healing places to go to for that. But when it comes to trauma, we don't have very many creative healing spaces. However, we do have the John Buckley Memorial Garden. So that is a healing space.
Okay.
Now it is a heart-shaped memorial garden. It's a flower garden that sits right along the walking trail right behind the Riverplex, 600 Northeast Water Street, where you can sit on a bench and reflect into the river. But we only have one bench, and we would like to have another bench so that there could be more people, healing spaces. And wouldn't it be nice if we had more trauma-informed healing spaces throughout the city?
Yeah,
and not self-help for people to just come to reflect. And not only is it just heart-shaped and have a bench there for you to sit down at, it also has subtitles around the memorial garden that reflects on the different traumatic deaths that people can get a brick in the memory of their loved ones too. So there is suicide, drug overdose, murder, auto-related deaths. If you wanted to give a donation to the Memorial Garden, those applications are at the Peoria Park District on Lake Street, the Bonnie Noble Center. And sometimes they're at the Riverplex. But I have learned, in our maintenance guy on the riverfront have told me numerous times how much this place is so special. He sees people come from Washington, East Peoria, some here in Peoria, and some just visited, wherever, just coming in to see it. And not only is there just a place just for a person to sit on the bench, the Heart of Illinois Accreditable Education for Young Children has donated a floating library. So I've heard from Head Start, from different agencies, that there are therapeutic books that are in the Lindy Library that we put there just so that they can help talk to their kids about death and passing and stuff like that. A lot of times when things happen like that, we forget about the kids. The kids are the one who's gonna have to grow up and deal with all this. I think about my grandson. He has a name, and I know one of these days that name is going to designate. It's going to spark something. Something's gonna happen because of it. When somebody dies, somebody names their kids after their loved ones. Okay. Now, if you name your kid after a loved one that's died by gun violence, that's the first time he ever heard of a gun. We don't think about that, but that's true. And I've thought about that. So now my grandson is 15 now, and he's going to high school, and it's just like, oh Lord, you know what I'm saying? Because you know, going through adolescent and then going through the preteen, and now you're going to a teenage stage, and you got to go through all these stages. But just to know that mommy had a brother that was killed. Not all the time, even though that's almost 20 years ago, it doesn't mean that he hasn't known who his uncle is. You know what I'm saying? Like, the family members are always going to talk about him because he's part of the family. It's like an umbrella dangling over, you know, a mobile dangling over a crib. And it's going, it got music, and that's how I see the family. It's a unit, right? One unit. And it has different individuals, and it has trinkets on it, and it's got umbrella, it's got a bear, it's got a cloud, it's got something else hanging down from there, right? And all of a sudden, one of them gets clipped off. That thing is not going to be able to, you know, operate the way it should.
Right.
And that's the whole nucleus of how the family is structured when this type of thing happens. Because in our human minds, we cannot understand. It doesn't rationalize. Like I had another son that died too, and he died as a baby, right? So as the years, I thought that was the hardest thing I went through because he was a baby, right? His lungs weren't fully developed. I was in the room. I heard the siren thing go off. Blue code, blue code. That was traumatizing, right? But it was a different type of trauma than the trauma that I experienced when you think about another person taking somebody's life because our human minds can't understand how or why did this happen. It didn't make no sense. It's a senseless situation. So therefore, our minds are going to always keep trying to figure it out. What happened? What? Because we weren't there. You know what I'm saying? We can't rationalize with that type of death. So that's what makes it bad. It's just almost the same thing with people losing loved ones from a car accident.
Right.
You have no idea of how that thing could have happened.
Right. I do have a question for you, Chris. So, like, say somebody's coming to you and they need assistance. You know, I've never needed a lawyer. Like, what's your fee? Like, not what's your fees, but like, what's your fees?
Well, I mean, every case is different.
Okay.
And you have to look at whether or not there is a defense, whether or not you think you're going to go to trial on it or not.
Okay.
And you have to also look at the person's background to see how safe it is for them to go to trial.
Okay.
Because if someone has had, let's say, a number of felonies, I know right then and there, they're probably not going to be able to testify because the moment they take the stand, then their record comes into play.
They're not credible.
They're not yet right. The jury's going to very likely conclude that they are not credible. And then I look at to see what the evidence is. And if there's what is called a hole in the case, I'll look to see if there's a hole in the case, whether or not there's a constitutional right violation, whether or not the victim's cooperating, or whether or not I think it's a weak case.
Okay.
And I oftentimes want to talk to my client directly to find out what his version of the case is. And some people, and a yellow flag for me is when I want to talk to my client about the case and either his girlfriend or his mother does most of the talking. That usually tells me right there it's probably either, well, could be a mama's boy or that maybe the individual is not great at communicating. Then that kind of tells me right there that increases the likelihood I can't put that individual on the stand.
Right.
Because if you can't communicate to me, and I'm being nice to you,
The
other side is they're coming for your head.
Right.
And so those are all different things that I analyze to determine what the fee would be.
Okay.
But
so basically, the harder you got to work, the more you're gonna charge.
you can put it like that elementary, but you can put it like that. But yeah, it's not just simple, but you can look at it like that.
Okay.
But I would rather work harder on the case, because if I can beat it,
Right.
then I want to beat it for the client.
Okay.
Because probation isn't fun,
Mm-hmm.
being on papers isn't fun, the state telling you when you can or can't leave the state isn't fun.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, on your website, people give you great reviews. So.
well, I appreciate it. I try. We try to do the best we can for
Right.
people.
Do you feel like sometimes there is a discord that happens in the courtroom as it relates to race? I've heard that a lot of times.
Yeah,
Right.
well, and what I do with my clients
Mm-hmm.
is I let them know, that you could very well be looked at differently. I don't think the state, treats you differently,
Mm-hmm.
but we all have social cues and we all have prejudices if we're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing I do is tell you, and I've had judges remark about this. I tell my clients all the time, dress like you're going to a
Right.
wedding.
Don't come in there sagging.
Don't come in there sagging. And reason why I say a wedding is because way you and your husband may dress at a wedding may be different the way I dress at a wedding.
Right.
All right, if I go to a wedding, I'm comfortable being suited and booted.
Mm-hmm.
If someone else goes to a wedding, he may be pulling at his shirt
Mm-hmm.
because the collar, because the tie doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell you, don't come in smelling like weed.
Mm.
Right.
Don't stay up the night before because you're stressed out doing things
Mm-hmm.
Right.
that you shouldn't be doing before court.
Right.
Show up on time and check in and be nice to the bailiff.
But they judging.
They're judging. and what people have to realize is you don't know who you're talking to.
That's right.
I can't talk to the judge without the other side being next to me,
Mm-hmm.
but that bailiff can go talk to that judge
Right.
Oh,
and
okay.
say, we got a live one right here.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, this one's being difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And the judge says, oh, okay, I'll keep my eye on it.
Yeah.
Or that bailiff can go talk to the court clerk,
Mm-hmm.
who is essentially, in layman's terms, the judge's secretary,
Right.
and will say the same thing. This person's being difficult. And then you don't know if that clerk is going to whisper it to the judge or not.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
So you always have to be careful who you're talking to because you never know. In law school, they actually teach you. Yeah, you're going to be in law. Yeah, you're in law school. Yeah, you're going to probably think you're different. No, you're not different. You need to be nice to everyone because you don't know who you're talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's true.
Okay. Learn something new
Yeah.
every day.
One of my grandfathers. My late father was a dentist, but
Mm-hmm.
my grandfather one of them had a 5th grade education, but he had a street named after him.
Mm. Okay.
And so you never know.
That's
so you
right.
treat everyone with the utmost respect.
Mm-hmm. You know, with you saying that, it reminds me that the court system, our judicial systems, they're all built on the Bible.
They are.
They really are. They
Yeah.
really are. Now people get mad, in church. Oh, you
Yeah.
judging, but you know what? You commit one of them wrong things, and you will be judged accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's
That's true.
no if and buts
Mhm.
about it. If you commit adultery, you're going to jail. I mean, not going to jail nowadays, but you're
Yeah.
gonna be fine. It's gonna be held accountable.
Mm-hmm.
You will be held accountable in the court of law
Mhm.
because of your oath, the covenant that we supposed to have with marriage and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? And then when I think about, so if you go in there and the Bible tells us, all right, thou shalt not kill,
Mhm.
and you go ahead and you kill somebody,
Right.
okay, you're going to be judged.
Right.
Now, all the time is it that we may not get to court, and this is what I tell my families of unsolved murders. Not all the time you gonna get the justice that you think you deserve in
Right.
court, okay? Because at any moment, at any time, there's also the thing that they can overturn your case
Yes.
through the appellate court,
Mm-hmm.
which I have kind of went through. They almost got to that point, but they didn't. So until a person has been proven guilty, I mean, and that means wrongfully done wrong for what they did or whatever,
Right.
then they're not going to be, what's the word that they say? You're an attorney, Mr. McCall. So you say, anything you say can be held
will be
against
used
you.
against you in the court of law, Miranda rights.
Right. They give you those rights. But then also, until a person has been judged or tried, they say, what is that?
Adjudicated.
Yeah. Then, until he's proven guilty. Can you say that real quick?
Innocent.
Well, you're
Yeah.
innocent until you're proven guilty. That aspect, yes.
That's right. So then, when it comes to that, that's why we need lawyers to be able to defend or whatever. But how do you feel sometimes when it's somebody you know this lying or you know this wrong, and they want you to defend them?
Well, that can be frustrating, but the key
Right.
is you don't put that individual on the stand.
Right.
Because that individual is gonna hurt you. Right.
On themselves,
Well,
you too.
Right. And so you just say, you know what, I want you to sit right here next to me and see what we can do. Because there's actually a saying amongst the attorneys that actually try a lot of cases. And I'll tell you this, there are a lot of attorneys that hold themselves out as trial attorneys, but they don't try cases. I probably had maybe, no exaggeration, probably about over 130 jury trials.
Okay.
I've done easily half a dozen murder cases. If someone testifies in their own defense, you put yourself at risk because at that point they're just going to try to poke holes. So the state actually hopes you take the stand and testify. Testifying is usually a trap. Of those probably 100 some plus jury trials I've probably had someone testify maybe about 25 times
Okay.
in terms of the person accused of the crime.
Okay.
What you got to understand is there's a cross section of individuals who are going to be jurors, and a lot of times they are not coming from neighborhoods that are crime-filled neighborhoods.
Right.
They're coming from Mossville, they're coming from Dunlap, they're retired, they're from the northwest end of town, and there are certain languages, and they can't get past the fact that someone is sitting outside of a corner store for 2 hours. That's just foreign to them. They're like, you're not working, you're not doing anything around the house, you're just sitting there drinking. What?
Right.
And so when I have, and it doesn't matter, you're going to have, those are the people who won't be on the jury because those are the people who want to do their constitutional duties and sit. So that's a different conversation. I would encourage people with other experience to be on juries and not just try to get out.
Okay.
Because we need individuals who have real life.
They look like
experiences.
us. Yeah.
Yes, you do.
Oh, you can sign up for jury duty?
Well, no, you can't sign up.
Okay, I've never had to do it.
No, basically what they look at your whether or not you're registered to vote.
Oh, yeah,
and
registered to vote.
they send you a
They
jury
send you a
question.
letter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then after that, they look to see if you are right for the case or not.
Okay.
They send it to me a few times, and just because I told you, they asked you, have you know somebody been murdered? Yeah. They asked you.
Don't call you.
Yeah, don't call me. But they was like, as soon as I say, yep, I had a son that was killed, they don't call me. I don't hear nothing else from them no more.
Dang, that's.
I'll tell you a fun fact. I've never been on jury either. I've never been on jury.
I did before, prior to, but but after my son got killed, now I won't be on a jury for a murder.
No, you
Okay.
won't.
That totally disqualified me
It does.
because I've already experienced one. They ask you, don't watch CSI. So.
A couple more questions. We've been talking an hour. Doesn't even feel like it, does it?
I
try to get. I do have a couple of questions. Do you believe the work you are doing in the community is making a difference?
I believe it's making a difference. There's just only me, and I would like to see more survivors hands-on.
Okay.
I mean, there are a few of us out there. I see, there's Terry Burnside. He has something going on down there at the House of Hope. And, but I'd like to see a more build up, a more investment
Okay.
into survivors so that they not become handicapped. That
Okay.
the police is going to do it. PCAP's going to do it. Somebody else is going to do it. How about we are the people that we've been waiting for to make these changes?
Well, can people get in touch with you to join, or do they have to be a victim in order to be?
No, they don't. If
Okay.
they just want to help out the stuff that I do,
Okay.
they just contact me on any of those platforms. Mothers War on Violence is on Facebook. The Who Killed Me poster campaign is on Facebook.
Okay.
And then so is the John Buckley Memorial Garden. So anybody who wants to help out, I welcome it. But
Okay.
I think it's making a difference. Recently, this year, I decided to put the survivor thing to the side and let's deal with intervention and prevention.
Yes.
So
for
this
sure.
year, I started mentoring programs. So the mentoring pop-up community mentoring events.
Okay.
Okay, so I did 2 of them this year, just
Okay.
to test run, see how it would go. They were well attended. They had maybe about close to 30 each one that I had.
Is Talks with Kings one of the
Mhm,
one you're
Talks
talking
with
about? Okay.
Kings,
Okay.
Tea with Queens,
Okay.
where we not just get together just over a meal, but there's older women talking to the younger women,
Right.
and then there's older men talking to the younger men,
Right, yeah.
and they're sharing their stories. So it was awesome, phenomenal. The kids loved it. Each one of those mentoring events had their own thing to it. So Talks with Kings, its theme was, what's your next move? So before the program actually started, everybody sat down and played checkers.
Okay.
How many times the statistics show that we don't get together with our kids over dinner, over just a conversation.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Same thing with Tea with Queens. When we sat down and had a tea party,
Okay.
it was a whole conversation that the older women were having their conversations and telling their stories, and then with the audience and everybody, and encouraging older women to get involved with younger women, because sometimes I find that those generations, the gap is getting bigger and bigger. But if we would, the older people still get involved. We were young once, we did foolish things,
Right.
but if we want to see change, we have to get involved.
Definitely.
So I thought that those 2 events were just phenomenal, and
Okay.
I still hear people talking about them to this day.
Okay.
We had very good speakers who were ready to just pour in, and that's what they did. They poured into, but that's really nothing new,
Right.
That's something that really come from when we were younger, going to church, and that was one of the things about the church that I really enjoyed that was from the Bible, and that was the Titus 2. The Titus 2 in the Bible, it talks about mentoring, because that's what that is. When the older women are teaching the younger women how to take care of their children, how to be a wife, all this and this, that was just, how things work. And now, things have changed. So now the mothers aren't taking their kids to church no more for help and from the older women and all that, because they got
Don't touch my kid.
stuff going on, all kind of drama stuff going on. And then the fatherless, the widows. This used to be how things were, you know what I'm saying? So having a community mentoring event really served a purpose, and it made such a difference. I've never seen so many smiles in my life. Just that little bitty touch that changed the whole atmosphere of the city. It was just like, wow, just what if we have more pop-up mentoring events like that? Just come on in, have a seat, let's have something to eat, let's have conversations, threw something in their folders about manners, about being polite. We dealt with all those type of things, and courtesy and adequacy, and being cute. What is it to be a queen? What is it to be a king?
Okay.
You know, those type of things. You know, those are good talking points for mentoring programs, and we got some a plethora of mentoring programs in the city, and some new ones that are coming about.
Okay.
So yeah, I feel like it's starting to make a difference.
I'm involved with like I said, the safety net. I'm not going to go back into that. I'm also board of director for Art Incorporated, which helps provide art services to kids and, you know, on the north end of town, especially in the south end of town. I'm a board of director with the Critton Center, and one of the things we do is help
I worked there
individuals.
once upon a time.
Yeah, so you know, helping people get supervised visits, helping provide diapers and pull-ups for kids.
The emergency daycare.
Emergency daycare. I am also, excuse me, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi, which is a fraternity and it's a social service fraternity. So we provide mentorship and community service around the areas. And I'm also the founder of one of my pet projects, Order in the Court.
Okay.
And what Order in the Court does, we get kids from throughout the communities, all throughout Central Illinois. But we teach them mock trial skills with attorneys and judges, and they put on a mock trial at the end of the program. So that's what I'm involved in.
Okay.
So yes, I do think it's making a difference. Even if we influence just a few people, then I like to think that we're working to do our parts.
Okay. You did mention you did a gun buyback or something before. Do you plan on doing any more of those?
We did those in 2022. And we got with some other mothers and we pushed for it, and we had a story on WCBU, and he won a nationally recognized award for having the second mini autobiography type of thing. So it was cool. Will we do it again? I don't know. It just depends. I don't know. I find that the gun buybacks are not as effective as the police doing stops and checking cars. I feel like those are more sufficient, because then you kind of catch people with their pants down, or I mean, when you hear these stories, and I've seen them about they stopped the car and they had a gun on the seat, and somebody had a gun in the glove compartment and stuff like that. You know, the more that they stop and, you know, check the car, and if you ain't doing nothing, you won't have nothing to worry about. You know, if you ain't got nothing, in your possession, that's, to me, those are more effective than having a gun buyback.
Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes with a gun buyback, people are turning in guns they weren't going to ever use anyway.
Brand new. So we look at it and say it's good they got the guns off the street, so at least nobody can, steal them.
Right.
But them ain't the guns. Them is retired people. Them not the guns that I want to get off the street. These ain't the handguns, the sawed-off.
Modified guns.
Yeah, the sawed-off shotguns that are killing our boys.
Right.
I mean, there's girls starting to be killed too now, but
Yeah.
it's still, the boys are still number one
Yeah.
in the homicide rate. So
Okay.
that's just my opinion. I mean, I like it that I like it that they're stopping people and figuring out what's going on. The new thing about the new homicide is the ones where you're driving and you've been smoking marijuana and you having a wreck and killing somebody. Okay, how do you deal with that? Isn't that murder still?
Yeah, it was usually involuntary homicide. Yeah. So yeah, that is.
It's on the rise.
It is on the rise. Vehicular homicide is on the rise.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh,
Okay.
So many people are driving high.
Well, I wasn't gonna say the high. People just don't know how to drive. We're in look at his face. He always has. When he's driving, he's like, first he was like, something I never thought of, but he always says it. You have two green lights, even though it's opposite directions, you have the two green lights, and when there's not a turning lane, like that person not knowing who's supposed to turn and who's supposed to go straight, like people don't have the common knowledge, the person turning waits for the person going straight, or just, just anything when it's traffic, he's like, man made these lights. That's what he always says. Like these man-made lights. Like who thought this was, it's a lot of time. And then people just don't know how to drive. Like they just give their license. They give the license to everybody. So, then you add, I guess, I didn't know marijuana was causing accidents. I didn't know that was a thing. I had this. I was a smoker when I was younger, 16 to 30 something. Except for when I was pregnant, I always stopped. So I just never imagined that somebody would get in an accident from smoking weed.
Yeah,
Well, you gotta imagine.
If you're high. Are you? I'll tell you this: if you're ingesting prescription medication, you could technically be high and driving as well.
True. That I know because I was a technician for 10 years, so that I know. I just never. Okay.
And like I said earlier, then the family would still be like, there's no reason why that person was killed.
Right.
But yeah, so that when we think about court, back to the court thing, and then when I look at race, I look at some of the cases and how if I'm of another race, I might can get off on a shorter sentencing, or sometimes I could just get probation.
Well, it's also there are some built-in issues with that.
With the Constitution, or
what I mean is how many people who are Caucasian are getting private attorneys. Now, I'm not saying that a public defender is bad. I'm not saying that. Because there are some that are some really good ones. And there are some situations where a public defender will tell private attorneys what to do because they're messing up. I've seen that. But a lot of the public defenders have been overworked. And overloaded, and if you're dealing with people, society factors, I've seen it a bunch of times talking to public defenders where they may not be able to get a hold of their client because the client has changed the number twice from the last court date.
Right.
And so there are some systemic issues that affect all of that. And so if I have a client who comes to my office, if I don't have his phone number, I have his girlfriend's phone number, I have his mother's phone number.
Right.
And I got the neighbor number.
Yeah. Or even after they pay me X amount of money, they want to make sure I got their phone number.
Right.
But if it's not that situation, if it's the public defender, there's a good chance they may not have a good phone number for the individual. On top of being overworked, on top of being overburdened. So it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because some people, our black and brown people feel like, that person, he really wasn't down for me, and he didn't really help fight the case, and that's how this happened and how they got off. And
yeah, and there is some of that, and there are sometimes situations where the attorney, the best work they do for the client doesn't appreciate. I've seen that. I've had clients who court didn't occur how they expected it to, or how they wanted it to occur, and they thanked me and other attorneys years later because they realized that we actually protected them.
Wow.
I have it happen all the time, where they say, you know what, I was right, Chris was right, I was wrong, the client was wrong. So beauty sometimes in the eye of the beholder.
I just want to shout out Karen. Thank you for always watching my lives. I really appreciate you. She's in here in the comments and stuff. So that's our time, y'all. I try not to make it too lengthy. This conversation could go on and on. I really appreciate both of you for sitting down, taking the time out of your day for this podcast today.
And thank you for having us. I love this podcast. I just now started watching it. And she has some interesting topics.
Thank you. I want to get back into the original reason why I did podcasts, but these topics they're on my heart, so I'm going to keep going with them. If they want to find you on Facebook, where can they find you?
Yep, you can find me on Mother's War on Violence on Facebook, or the Who Killed Me page for Unsolved Murders. or the John Buckley Memorial Garden. Just depends on what you need.
Okay. And if they need an attorney, where can they find you?
www.mccalllegal.com 309-673-1200.
All right. Thank you so much. And you guys stay tuned in for the next episode of That Weird Girl Podcast.
Three.
Peace.